A few weeks ago, 38 of the 50 Secretary of States were in Washington, D.C. for their biannual conference to discuss how they'll handle elections moving forward. Among the group, Vermont's new Secretary of State, who stopped by here this week to talk about that and some of the changes voters could see in the future. Secretary of State Sarah Copeland-Hanzis, thanks for coming back to NBC5 In Depth.
It's great to be here.
First time back since the election. Take us back 2 months ago to being sworn in. You've won plenty of state elections as a state rep. But what was that moment like to be standing in front of a full house there in the House chamber and taking the oath of office?
Well, that was a really special day on a number of different levels, not the least of which is because that's the first time that we had been able to be in person for that ceremony in a couple of years. And, you know, to be there and to have two of my three kids with me on the floor of the House, being sworn in front of many of my colleagues who I've served, you know, a couple decades with in the House, it was really special.
2 months into the job, what has surprised you the most about it?
You know, I just love every bit about it. I mean, it's really, I knew that the Secretary of State's office did really good work on behalf of Vermonters. I guess what I've been most buoyed by and heartened by is the fact that that good work is done because the people who work at the Secretary of State's office all really believe we should be doing, you know, good work, giving good customer service, responding in a timely manner, answering the phone. So it's been really fun and refreshing to get that feedback from people who say, oh, you know, I was really concerned or really worried, or, you know, I needed this information and somebody answered the phone and they answered my question. And, you know, it should be the standard, and
right.
I'm really proud that our agency gives that good service.
You recently attended a conference of the National Association of Secretaries of State in Washington, D.C. That was just a couple weeks ago. You were one of 12 newbies there. What did you take away from that conference?
Well, it was pretty inspiring to be among these real heroes of democracy. You know, the role of Secretary of State used to be sort of something that people didn't pay very much attention to and weren't real concerned with. And, you know, over the past several years, you know, the big lie, lots of intensity on around elections. You know, some of these people are the people that we've looked at in the national news who were really standing there and standing up for defending democracy. It was pretty cool to be able to sit down with them, interact with them, hear how they run their offices, hear their wisdom and their insights into how to do this job.
And you have a mentor, right?
I do.
Every Secretary of State who's new to the job got a mentor during the conference.
That is correct. And my mentor is so far away, it's going to be really hard for me to visit her, even though I would really like to. Secretary Fagan from Oregon.
Okay.
I don't know if we were paired up because we both like to play basketball, but we didn't actually get to meet at the conference because she had torn her ACL playing basketball just a couple weeks before. So she was headed for surgery instead of coming to the conference. But we've had some good conversations on the phone. We've made plans for, you know, picking up a WNBA game the next time we're in the same place for a conference. So looking forward to meeting with her.
Was there a topic that kind of caught your attention that you said, this is something we have to be out on the lookout for here in Vermont? Yeah. You know, Vermont really relies on a program called ERIC. That is a voluntary program that states join to share their voter registration rolls, so that if somebody from Vermont moves to California or Oregon or Connecticut and doesn't tell us that they've left, we don't have any way of knowing that we should take them off the voter rolls. ERIC is a program that allows states to share information between states so that we can use that to make sure that our voter rolls are the most up-to-date. Sort of the only tool that we have out there to get this information about people who've moved, or look at the master death register to see who's passed away and who can be removed from the rolls that way. I was really surprised that it was gaining a little bit of controversy. And I think it's really unfortunate because it is the basic tool that we all need in order to be able to say, yes, we believe our voter rolls are as accurate as they can be. Speaking of voting, this past week we had town meeting day. A lot of towns back in person this time around. You don't oversee those elections. Those are handled by the towns and the cities. But you are watching for what on town meeting day?
So we are basically there as a resource, and it's all hands on deck. It's a state holiday, so other folks are not in the building, but we're in the building answering the phones, answering the emails. Questions about what do we do if we forgot to put this candidate's name on the ballot? What do we do if that ballot initiative didn't end up making it to the final proofing of the ballot? One community called with the question of, what do we do because our town report didn't get to the voters, and the voters don't want to hold a town meeting until they've had a chance to review the report. So all of these are scenarios that are sort of, human, maybe a human error, maybe a little mishap, and towns want to know, what does the law say? What does the statute say about how we should proceed at this moment? So we're really a resource for the communities.
Burlington voters decided to bring back ranked choice voting when it comes to the mayor's race and things like that. There's currently a bill introduced in Montpelier that would establish ranked choice voting in our next presidential primary. Where do you stand on that?
So the Senate committee is working on that bill right now. I believe that where they've gotten to with the bill, and they haven't passed it out yet, is that they're going to push that back so that it is the presidential primary of 28. But they are talking about extending that provision to all communities who want to adopt ranked choice voting on the local level, so that between now and 2028, more communities might adopt it, more voters might have an opportunity to see what ranked choice voting is all about, and so that clerks in those communities who are really interested in embracing it will have an opportunity to administer a ranked choice voting election before the 2028 primary. So we are very supportive of the committee moving forward with this. We also want to make sure that it's done in a way that we can really offer all of the support that not only voters need, but that our town clerks need in order to be able to administer these elections. So we appreciate the careful path forward that they're moving on, and we'll be embracing these conversations with them when they return from town meeting break.
Chris, your office will be involved in the educating of people on how this all works as far as picking a first, a second, and a third choice.
Exactly, yeah, and it's a very unique way of voting compared with pick your one. This is if there's 5 candidates, rank them, and it's a cool opportunity. But we want to make sure that voters know how to do that, because one of the saddest and most frustrating things is when a voter makes an error on their ballot that causes their vote to be discarded. And so we just want to make sure that people know how to fill out a ranked choice ballot before we put one in front of them.
There's a lot of bills going through Montpelier right now. H23 says that your office would only send ballots to voters that request them instead of sending them to all active voters. That voters would need to request them. Good idea or a bad idea?
So we have maintained that that is the appropriate way to administer the primary election, because people who vote in the primary generally are people who identify with a political party, and they say, I want a primary ballot because I am a diehard Republican and I want to make sure that I get my chance to vote. If you're an independent and you don't feel as strongly about the party primary system, you might not vote in the primary. But for the general election, we instituted universal vote by mail intentionally because of the positive reaction that we heard from Vermonters in having done that for the first time during the pandemic 2020 election year. And so we wouldn't support going backward on that. I think that voters really like being able to have their ballot in front of them for a number of weeks to be able to consider the candidates, consider the issues, do their research, and then decide when to vote.
Your office is not just about voting. You've got a new civics initiative with a new position, an education and civic engagement coordinator. What will that person do? I
am so excited to get this person on board because what I noticed over the years in engaging with Vermonters during my time serving in the legislature is many of them said, I don't know how to vote, but I don't feel comfortable voting because I don't know who the candidates are, or I don't know what that office does. How would I know how to vet a high bailiff candidate when I have no idea what the high bailiff does?
Right.
And so this idea of education and civic engagement is really let's empower people. Let's get the information in front of them so that they do feel like they have enough information to make that decision and to cast a ballot.
And where are you at in hiring this person or identifying this person?
We are within, I would say, a week or two of having that person on board. And it's a pretty intense workload for the first 2 years, because what I want my education and civic engagement person to help do is to then create a voter guide for the 2024 general election, so that when you get your ballot, you also get your voter guide with a list of all the candidates, their contact information, their website, their social media, so that you can spend the time with your ballot researching what these people say about themselves and who you want to vote for.
And we'll be there before we know it.
I know, time flies.
All right. Secretary Copeland-Hanzis, thanks for joining us on NBC5 In Depth.
It was great to be here. Thank you.
And you can find more voter resources on the Vermont Secretary of State's website at the address that you see on your screen. We'll be right back.